Hello, I'm John Cunningham, and welcome to another episode of the RedChip Money Report. For those of you new to the show, RedChip is an investor relations, media, and research firm focused on emerging growth companies. Our unique platform combines global multimedia with traditional investor relations, reaching investors around the world. Now, today's show features interviews with executives of two public companies. First up is Genius Group, stock symbol GNS on the New York Stock Exchange American. Genius Group is a fast-growing edtech player on a mission to revolutionize the global education system. It's disrupting the current education model with its student-centered, lifelong learning curriculum that prepares students with the leadership, entrepreneurial, and life skills needed to succeed in today's market. We'll learn more when we speak with the founder and CEO later in the show. Up next, Inspira Technologies, stock symbol IINN on the NASDAQ. Inspira Technologies is an innovative medtech company that's redefining artificial respiration with its breakthrough augmented respiration technology system known as ART, a minimally invasive, scalable, cost-effective, early-stage respiratory support system. We'll learn more when we speak with Joe Hyon, the president, director, and co-founder of Inspira, later in the show. Now, before we get to the first interview, our quote of the week. It comes from the book Small Stocks, Big Money. Get to know management, look for intelligence, a high level of integrity, strong communication skills, and make sure they understand their products and business well. This quote comes from Charles Diker, an investment manager featured in Chapter 8 of Small Stocks, Big Money. This is a book of exclusive interviews with some of the biggest players in the microcap space. Get a digital copy on Amazon for just $18. Now let's get started with our first interview today with Genius Group.
Great to have you with us today.
Good to be back here, Craig.
Genius Group is disrupting the current education model. Roger, for viewers new to the story, tell us how your student-centered lifelong learning curriculum is redefining education in the 21st century.
Well, first of all, I think everyone can see that there is huge changes happening in technology right now. And so with AI and the revolution taking place, there are more and more questions as to what jobs are going to be there for the future, but also what opportunities are there as well. So what we do at Genius Group is create an entire lifelong learning curriculum to teach the best entrepreneurial investing skills for students of all ages so that they are able to create whatever jobs are going to be the right jobs for them in the future based on their personal path.
Roger, how big do you estimate that market opportunity being?
So the market opportunity, according to Holland IQ, which is one of the leading education research companies, is $10 trillion in size. That's taking the entire education pie. And I think what a lot of companies do is they'll look at a particular part of that pie. So for example, about 50% of that is the K-12 market, which is primary and high school. There's about a quarter of it, which is the university side. And then there is another quarter, which is a mix of everything from pre-K through to corporate training, through to lifelong learning. In our case, we stretch all the way from 0 to 100 years old. And so we see that entire $10 trillion pie as being something that we're really focused at.
Talk to us about your growth strategy, Roger. How are you scaling the organization globally?
So the two biggest things that we've been doing since we had our IPO just over a year ago is that we have been focusing, number one, on organic growth. So we have our EdTech platform, Genius U, where we now have over 4 million students, and we have got many new students, in fact, several thousand joining every single day. And they are then coming into the different courses, programs we have. And that's creating this organic growth that historically has been 50% year on year. And we intend to continue to grow at a significant pace. However, there's a second part to this as well, which is while there's other edtech companies out there that are creating platforms but don't own their own government-approved, government-funded curriculum, in our case, we actually own our own university. And we're also acquiring at different institutional levels, different certifications that are also government funded, that are also government supported, plus corporate certifications as well. And so that really makes a huge difference in terms of how our growth strategy differs from some of the others. Is as much about the acquisition side as it is about the organic side.
What differentiates Genius Group from other education companies like Coursera and Udemy?
So I think there's three big differentiators which actually helps us a lot with what's happening with AI right now. The first one is most people who come and join Genius U don't start by learning something about a subject. They actually start by learning about themselves. So we have got a whole series of assessments, starting with the Genius test, which is what's your talents, but then moving on to things like the passion test, the purpose test, which is linked to United Nations Global Goals. So once a student at any level finds out what's really meaningful to them, which is, what do I really care about? What am I passionate about? What do I actually want my life to be about in terms of the contribution I make? Once they know that, they can then be directed very specifically in different ways. We just launched our Genie AI, which is linked to GPT-4, and that actually starts by knowing exactly who you are. So someone like you, Craig, could find out, hey, based on just who I am, my interest, what level of my career I'm at, what is it that Genie would then offer for me? Genie would then share with you. So that comes to the second part. If number one is the whole assessment-focused area of our platform, the second part is the personalized learning, where Genie then supports you on your journey, and you get to then connect with other students as well. And that's the third part, which is that we're not all about learning through academic learning, which is when you need to know in order to do. We're actually focusing at entrepreneurial learning, which is needing to do in order to know. 5 steps, CLEAR, which is who are you going to connect with, what are you going to learn, how are you going to earn, how are you going to get an ROI on your education, and then what are the things you're going to do to act, and then how do you go about reviewing. Like this 5-step process is the same process that all of the most inventive companies in the world use to be tracking their employees so that you can be testing and measuring, trialing what works, and then continuing to double down on the things that work best for you as well. I think that's a super exciting part of what we're doing, is this a whole methodology of learning, which allows those who go through it to become far more connected to others that are having things in common with you as well. That's not just students, it's also mentors. We have over 12,000 mentors on our platform helping students every day.
Roger, management, of course, is the key to the success of smaller cap companies. Who are some of the key players on your team?
So we have been very lucky to attract an incredible group that have come and joined us on our journey here. We have Erisima, who is our CFO, who has had plenty of experience building billion-dollar businesses in the past. We have Rav Kawal, who is our CRO, he's been doing an incredible job in actually being able to evolve our growth strategies across all the different companies that we have in the group. We have 8 companies in the group now. We also have got general managers in each of the different companies that we have on our group and on our platform as well. And somebody that those who are investors are sure to meet on our regular investor meetings is Flora Hewitt. She is our head of investor relations and also our M&A strategy as well. I could go on because we have over 500 in our team as well as all our partners, but that's just giving you a bit of a taste on the type of talent that we are attracting to ourselves right now.
Roger, give us the essential value proposition. Why should investors take an interest in Genius Group right now?
I think for many investors, they're seeing in the investment markets, it's a very uncertain time. And so the real question is, how do you go about making your decisions on which are going to be the companies that you are most interested in investing in? I think that there are more and more investors that, number one, are taking a more long-term approach. It's not so simple as it was several years ago to be able to just come in and just see the share price just start rocketing straight away because of where the market is at. And when you're actually going to take a long-term approach, the most important thing is to be thinking, well, am I actually with a company I want to be part of? Is this a purpose-driven company? And we're seeing many examples of purpose-driven companies that are out there not just to be able to do well, but to do good, right? To actually be making an impact in the world. And I really believe there's no bigger impact necessary in the world right now than a shift in our education system from what's been a quite archaic old system, which many people already see isn't what fits them. And I'm not just talking about at university or school level, I'm talking about even corporate training. Now, how do we really make sure that we're all the future that we are building? And secondly, I think that those who come and join us will find that we have a very vibrant investor community. We actually even have an investor campus on Genius U with our investor summit, our investor retreats, where we're teaching all the very best in ethical investing. How do you go about making sure that your investments are protected and that you're actually doing the right thing with the right people to actually even change the rules of the market to support more and more investors to have a safe investment that can actually make a difference in the world. And then not only do the investors win, but so do all the students, so do all of the partners that we have on our platform as well.
Roger, that sounds extremely attractive. Thank you for sharing your great story with us.
Thanks very much.
Now, to get more information on Genius Group, visit geniusuinfo.com. You'll see research reports, fact sheets, presentations, and the latest videos. It's all free. You can even subscribe to email alerts to stay on top of the latest news. You can also call 1-800-RedChip to speak to a specialist if you have any questions. We also have a free weekly newsletter you can subscribe to at redchip.com, featuring emerging growth companies like Genius Group. Again, visit redchip.com and subscribe today. In addition to our newsletter, you can order Small Stocks, Big Money. This is a book written by RedChip's CEO, featuring interviews with some of the biggest players in the microcap space. Get a digital copy on Amazon for just $18. Now let's move on to our next interview today with Inspira Technologies.
Joe, great to have you back.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Joe, for viewers new to the story, what is Inspira?
Inspira is a medtech company aiming to revolutionize the acute respiratory care market. And our target, our goal, is to prevent the need for invasive mechanical ventilation. So for our listeners, to understand what that means, a patient that has acute respiratory failure has difficulty breathing because they are not able to have enough oxygen penetrate their lungs into the blood. When that becomes a problem, you need to get placed on invasive mechanical ventilator, a machine that breathes for you, requires coma, requires for the patient to be intubated. And I think we've all very much learned much about this during COVID-19. But unfortunately, this is still a problem because there are millions and millions each year that still end up being placed on this machine. But what we want to do is provide a new approach. So instead of going through the sick lungs, we want to bypass the sick lungs, go directly into the blood with a special process that removes about 1.5 liters of the patient's blood per minute. We're going to remove the carbon dioxide, we're going to boost it with high levels of oxygen and circulate it back into the patient's vein. And therefore, support the lung to boost the patient's oxygen saturation levels in just minutes to hopefully stabilize them. But what's more, we plan to do this while the patient's awake and still breathing by themselves. So hopefully, this would shorten the treatment time dramatically, allow them to go home and eliminate many medical complications and risks that are actually brought on by the mechanical ventilator. The very machine used today as a standard of care that's supposed to help the patient.
Let's talk a little bit more about the monetary, the financial impact of mechanical ventilation.
With millions and millions of people needing this treatment, it's going to cost, and it's costing hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars each year to healthcare systems. Because every patient that comes in, the cost of treatment for a week or two could be in the tens of thousands to the hundreds of thousands of dollars. They're often in hospital for 6-7 days, sometimes 2 weeks, sometimes even longer. So this is having a huge burden on the health system, on the economics. And again, there's the high mortality rate, which in itself has very many direct and indirect financial and health implications, of course.
What will happen if the world does not find any new solution?
We look at the basic statistics. About 30% of patients that are placed into a coma suffer from post-traumatic stress. And this will continue to be experienced by the healthier patients for months to follow. Very traumatic. If we look at the statistics, there's a 40% readmission rate. So even if somebody left the hospital and was one of the lucky ones, they may end up coming back within weeks or months. And this is a revolving door. And sometimes they end up not going home at all. They die. So this is where we are today. We need a different solution. The world needs a different solution.
Joe, tell us again, please. What does the IMV approach miss that Inspira covers?
When a person has acute respiratory failure, they have difficulty breathing to the extent that they can't get enough oxygen through their lungs into the bloodstream. But what we've been doing is we've been shutting down the patient, shutting down their lungs, and having a machine take over that's actually working through the very sick lung that we're trying to treat. Think about that for a moment. And we believe that it would be a much better proposal and a new approach that Inspira offers or plans to offer is to actually bypass that sick lung and to go and oxygenate the blood directly. And in the process, target to keep the patient awake and get them out of the hospital as soon as possible and without creating those ventilator-associated complications and risks. It's not us, but rather the medical world that tags many of the medical problems as being ventilator-associated or ventilator-induced lung injuries. So everybody's very much aware that there is a solution, but there's a piece missing in the puzzle, and we hope to be that piece.
It truly is a radical new way to treat patients. Joe, can you give us some information about the milestones that Inspira has achieved to date?
So, for example, the company's been working obviously on different areas, different sectors, both towards commercialization, both towards IP, and both towards technological development. So, for example, we have been working on a subcomponent, an advanced sensor, a non-invasive blood sensor, which was designed for the art. And we're now taking it through a clinical study at a hospital in Israel, the Shipa Medical Center. It's ranked in the top 10 in the world. And it's being used currently in a study alongside patients on open heart surgery. And what we're going to be doing there is using a non-invasive sensor, a sensor that doesn't actually physically touch the blood, but rather gets clipped, placed over a tube with blood flowing through it. And it will be able to collect data to monitor and measure certain key blood parameters. And why is that important? Because if we can know what's happening within the patient's blood, we can assist the medical world about how to react with treatment, how systems are potentially operating correctly, and also about patient condition. So this is a unique disruptive technology being developed for the Inspira Art, and it's already being tested as a standalone potential product called the Hyla in a hospital here in Israel. Secondly, another building block for the Inspira Art is what we call the ALICE. It's a system designed to provide cardiac and pulmonary support in patients that have a very, very acute condition whereby they need full cardiovascular blood circulation in order to keep them alive. So this is often seen as a CPB, cardiopulmonary bypass machine, or sometimes it's used as a type of ECLS. And basically what it does is taking all the blood, removing the carbon dioxide, providing oxygen, and it's really used as a last resort. So it's really the final stop, and if this doesn't work, then nothing else does. But this has been designed around what we're doing. It's going to be designed to integrate with the Hyla, and it's a building block towards the Inspira Art, which is going to be used at a much earlier stage for respiratory support and not as a life support. Now, what's very unique about this product, and it shows our progress, we've already started manufacturing of these items, of these products at a contract manufacturing plant here in Israel. The product is now going through verification validation, which is almost a final step before the planned FDA submission in the second half of this year. And we hope that early next year, we will already have a cleared product, and therefore allow us to make progress with an Inspira product being deployed in hospitals. Thirdly, we were granted by the US Patents Office approval for the Inspira Art's dual lumen cannula. So for all the listeners, a dual lumen cannula is a special tube that will be inserted into the vein, and this is the tube through which we are removing the blood and returning it. It's a very unique dual lumen cannula. It's both an inlet and an outlet in one entry point. And I'm very proud to say that almost 20 claims were approved by the US Patent Office, which we consider extremely unique and just evidence of what we're doing and the path that we're taking. An additional achievement is we've grown our key opinion leader support. We have a scientific advisory board of about a dozen doctors, world-leading doctors, amongst them the president of the Extracorporeal Life Support Organization, which is the world of blood circulation, blood oxygenation. So all the products like heart, lung, ECMO, the Inspira Art, which is designed to use blood circulation. This is the president of this medical sector, of this society. So having someone of such a high caliber on our scientific advisory board, I think brings us a lot of pride, and I think maybe everybody can really understand what that means. Above this, we've also worked very hard to sign preconditional distribution agreements We have over $400 million in preconditional distribution agreements, both in Europe, both in Israel, and in 6 states in the US. These are preconditional, of course, of future deployments, the completion, obviously, of development, the completion of attaining regulatory approval. But we have distributors in the different regions who are interested to work with Inspira and to sell Inspira's products in the future over, obviously, up to a 7-year period, depending on which contract we're talking about. But I think that, in a sense, is already proving the traction that we are working towards when we reach commercialization, hopefully one day. Another very, very important point here is that we have signed a strategic agreement, a collaboration agreement with a hospital, Sheba. You can find in the past and the current different collaboration agreements for development, research, deployment. They're very interested in what we're doing. So I think the fact that we got a hospital that's in the top 10 that has worked with us even now to perform the clinical studies for data analysis and collection, I think is a statement in itself. And finally, we've actually signed a strategic OEM agreement. Is an agreement with a manufacturer of products. It's one of the largest medical device companies in the space, a multi-billion-dollar company. We have signed with a division of this company for a specific, very unique component used in the flow process for an oxygenation of blood that's in circulation. And this component will be used, hopefully, we plan both in our different products, the Alice, and most likely in the Inspira Art. So you can see that we've been working on building blocks, new technologies, new products, things that we believe are very disruptive. We are working towards commercialization, working within the medical community and even the medical industry, creating those strategic relationships. And this basically allows for Inspira to continue to push forward, to prepare itself as we move with the different products from development to regulatory processes and hopefully to deployment and sales in the future.
Speaking of sales, what is the total addressable market when all is said and done for your types of devices?
The Inspira Art, we would probably treat a patient by bundling the medical device, which is designed to be very affordable in relation to mechanical ventilators. It's a very affordable price, but we're really going to be selling disposable kits, very much similar to the razor blade model, the Gillette model. There are millions and millions of people that are placed on invasive mechanical ventilators. Some numbers are as high as 20 million per year. Now, for example, if we would be able to treat just 500,000 patients, and if we would, for example, sell a disposable kit for $2,000 per treatment, that's $1 billion per year for treating 5–10% of the market. So we can understand now what the potential is. Now, what's another very important point to make here is that if we can come in and provide a new class of respiratory support, it will most likely be on the counter of invasive mechanical ventilators, right? And the mechanical ventilation market is a multi-billion-dollar market. It's a huge market, and if we bring a new technology, it's going to have a huge impact on that market. So you can understand what the entire market share is. Our HILA system, it's roundabout patient monitoring support. We realize that there are about 1.2 million procedures annually, whereby we would be able to target. So these are procedures like patients that are going through open heart surgery and be able to monitor what's happening on blood flowing out of the patient, as well as blood flowing through the artificial heart lung. So just think about that as well. You charge for a consumable, whether it's hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars, but you've got 1.2 million potential procedures. That's quite a big number as well. And again, we have the Alice. It's about a $700 million market today in itself. So one can understand that we are building a pipeline with a big medical breakthrough coming through the Inspira Art. We have the potential to reshape and lead the respiratory care market.
That is one memorable quote right there. The capability of reshaping the respiratory market. That's really good. Thank you, Joe. What can we expect from Inspira in the coming years?
So one can understand that we are targeting markets that have millions of patients. Markets where there hasn't been any significant breakthroughs in decades. We believe that we will continue on our path, build these strategic agreements, continue with development, and hopefully eventually reach the market. We believe and know that many medical device companies have their eyes glued on Inspira and are very much interested to see where we're going and how we would potentially impact this huge space. Over time, should we succeed with development, with regulatory approvals and deployment, we could expect to see Inspira products in a couple of years in multiple regions, in multiple hospitals and medical centers, reshaping and rediscovering and providing a new value proposition to the patients, to the hospitals, and to the medical industry.
Joe, your ambitions are great and your story is fascinating. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you very much. It's been a real pleasure.
Now, to get more information on Inspira Technologies, visit IINNinfo.com. You can even subscribe to email alerts to stay on top of the latest news. You can also call 1-800-RedChip to speak to a specialist if you have any questions. We also have a free weekly newsletter you can subscribe to at redchip.com, featuring emerging growth companies like Inspira. Again, visit redchip.com and subscribe today. In addition to our newsletter, you can also order your copy of Small Stocks, Big Money. This is a book written by RedChip CEO, featuring interviews with some of the biggest players in the microcap space. Order your copy at Amazon.com for just $18. Now let's recap the companies you met today. First, you met Genius Group, stock symbol GNS on the New York Stock Exchange American. Led by the New York Times bestselling author and Wealth Dynamics founder, Roger James Hamilton, Genius Group delivers a universal, personalized, and inclusive lifelong education system with an AI-driven edtech platform and a 21st century curriculum to provide students with an alternative to the traditional education system. Executing from a strong foundation, Genius Group is in a great position to continue to generate rapid growth with plans to deliver greater than 50% annual growth in the years ahead. Again, to learn more about Genius Group, visit www.geniusuinfo.com. Then you met Inspira Technologies, stock symbol IINN on the NASDAQ. Inspira's innovative ART system is targeting the millions of patients that suffer from acute respiratory failure each year. Utilizing direct blood oxygenation in awake patients, the game-changing ART system is designed to rebalance oxygen saturation levels in minutes in order to minimize the need for intubation, induced coma, and invasive mechanical ventilation treatment. Inspira is actively pursuing regulatory approvals in both the US and Europe, and they already have a pipeline of more than $400 million in potential sales. Learn more at IINNinfo.com. Again, if you have any questions about any of the public companies featured on today's show, please call us at 1-800-RedChip or email us at info@redchip.com. In closing, remember, while small caps can provide significant gains, you must be prepared for the downside. Small cap stocks are among the most volatile asset class. Some of the companies featured on this show are RedChip client companies, and we may own stock in these companies. So please always read our disclosures at redchip.com. Thanks for being with us today. We'll see you next week with some new exciting emerging growth companies.